All right, Brad, you notice the photo that I used for the slate here? This is for the video folks. For the audio folks, we'll explain it in a second here. So I'm going to play it again. I'm going to show you again.
Yep.
Do you understand what photo that is?
This is another Game 6 Clay.
It's Game 6 Clay. And that's who Klay Thompson channeled. He channeled his inner Game 6 Clay tonight. Though, I don't know, did you feel like that performance it wasn't as epic because was that game was on the road, I think, right?
Yeah, that photo was the OKC crowd.
Yeah, that was the OKC crowd. So, but it was close. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better performance by Klay Thompson tonight. That was pretty amazing.
I agree. I felt like, he came out hot, and then it felt like a third quarter, maybe fourth quarter too, Clay. I felt like that went a little silent in the second quarter. I can't really Game 6 Clay, the most recent one is Toronto, and he got hurt. That was when he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
So that's the most recent one that I can remember. And I can't remember if that specific game was just dominance through every quarter, or if it was just spurts through those couple runs where they, rely on Clay to hit a three in transition.
So the ebbs and flow of this game were pretty tough. This very much resembled, I would say, actually, it was a much better offensive game than Game 4. Game 4 was more of a rock fight. This game at least had some shooting, but there were moments where the Warriors, their shooting just went away. They were making, I think they had 7 threes in their first 30 points or something like that. Or maybe even less than that, 25 points or something. And then they went on a 0 for 11 streak from shooting threes. So it was very up and down. And there was a moment there where I was like, even though we're winning this game by 1, it just seems like Memphis is playing a lot better. But the one caveat in which the Warriors were consistent all the way through was the rebounding. And that leads to my first point here in our 3 points. Every game we have 3 points. My first point is Looney starts the game and he changes the trajectory of it from the start. Kevon Looney, I think we were all in the text going oh, it's got to be Poole. It's got to be Poole. And then when it was Looney, I kind of gave a little bit of a sad face. And Richard Jeff, a.k.a. Barry Bonds, corrected me very early in this game. He was like, Loon's been the starter all season. They're going to go right back to how they've been playing all year long with Looney as the starter. They're not going to miss a beat with him starting. And I was like, yeah, you know what? And he was good this year. Looney starting was a really solid rebounder, defender. He's never going to be good around the rim. He's got butterfingers like nobody's business. But man, it was nice to see him. And I don't know how many minutes he played, but geez,
I have it. I want to ask you right now.
Go for it.
So what surprises you more? Okay. Looney, 35 minutes or 22 rebounds?
I kind of think the 35 minutes.
I think so too. I think so too. Lots of 13 and 11-minute games in that Nugget series. 35 for Kevon, man. He had that this season it was his goal to play all 82, and he did, but it wasn't 35-minute all 82s. It was I'd be surprised sometimes if he got to the 20s.
Yeah. He had more all 82s than Anthony Slater did. So Looney, I think he's the unsung hero. He's the secret MVP of this game. I think Clay's going to get all the write-ups, right? If you write in a lead story on this game, you lead with Clay because Game 6 Clay, that's the thing that people remember. Steph shot making at the end after I don't know, they had him all out of sorts, all out of rhythm. He was 4 for 17 shooting at one point during this game. And then Draymond closing in that fourth quarter. Those are probably the 3 stories that you're writing if you are writing
what was your second one?
Game.
Steph?
Yeah, Steph closing the fourth quarter. I mean, closing the game, essentially. But I think the most important part of this basketball game, I'm actually going to go two other places here, and I'm interested to hear what you think. One is Looney, the rebounding, the holding off. I don't know how many rebounds Jaren Jackson had, but I don't remember a big rebound for him when they needed one. He had 4. Your boy Steven Adams, who you were just singing the praises of, MVP Steven, I think you called him.
Stop.
He had 10 rebounds, right? But he did not feel like he was that big of a factor. Like the two biggest factors in this game were Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane. They were just out of their mind. And Tyus Jones kind of came back to life, though. I'm not disrespecting that guy ever again. He played so well this series.
Yeah.
In the shadow of Ja, tremendous. But Looney shielded off. Adams had 10. Jaren Jackson had 4. Tyus Jones is actually the second leading rebounder. Brandon Clark, a big nothing burger for Brandon Clark again. And a lot of that was just Looney holding his ground. And so sort of the second secret MVP of this game is a guy whose all-star jersey you were thinking about buying and then decided at the very last minute that you didn't like the color. And that is Andrew Two-Way Wiggs. What a second half of this game for him. Amazing.
Crazy second half. Yeah. By the way, just to back that up a little bit, I wanted the red one the whole time, but they never had it available to buy. That's the one I wanted. But then we went to the Warriors store and they had the blue one. And it's like he didn't even play on that team for the All-Star game. I would have bought it if it was the red one. But yeah, the Wiggins cruddy first half, but he brings more than just offense. But
yeah,
Richard Jeff, aka Barry Bonds, and by the way, we say Barry Bonds because you say that he sounds like Barry Bonds.
He does sound
Richard
like Barry
Jefferson,
Bonds.
aka Barry Bonds, made sure to note that Wiggins was 1 for 9 going into the third quarter, or was 1 for 8. It was one of the two.
Well, and what he said was, this is an all-star, and
exactly,
you have to play like an all-star in the playoffs if you're really an all-star.
And I think we should clip that moment and then count up his literally like he goes 0 for 0, 0 for 0 from there. And then from that moment, how did he play? Because I think it was crazy. He was awesome. He was everywhere.
Hurt him.
And exactly,
him, right?
Yeah. Hit the big shots, but then obviously what doesn't get, you don't completely remember it, or you might look over it, but because it's not a block, it's not a steal, it's not a 3-pointer, but it's just good defense on like Dylan Brooks, who's trying to make a layup, and that starts a run where Steph gets that 3 over Steven Adams, who's not really like looking to close out until the last second. Like that was because Wiggins got a stop on the other end. So I just think that what he brings defensively is already a plus in my mind. I said this with Otto a little bit, but like if he can just bring it offensively, that is just like so big for the Warriors. I think his problem, and not what his problem was maybe, but I don't know if it's solvable in the playoffs, but he was bobbling a lot. It was reminding me of last year's James Wiseman.
Yes.
That guy would bobble everything. Wiggins was bobbling so much in the beginning. I actually think I know your points. I don't think we're going to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies defense, but I think that defense, because these guys have 7-foot wingspans, a lot of them, they're the lengthy and they're tall guys and they're athletic guys. It makes every possession uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of that is just, Wiggins does bobble the ball, but I think it was more like I saw it so much more today just because like maybe he's thinking, oh my God, this guy's going to be jumping over my back in a couple of seconds if I don't get the shot off quick. But I think, yeah, Wiggins, amazing performance. That would be my 3 stories, would be Clay, Looney, and Wiggins. Sorry, Steph and Draymond. I didn't really feel the energy until the end there. After talking all that crap, dancing to whoop that trick, after Draymond in the press conference, like nodding his head or whatever he was doing in the press conference that made it sound like they were going to whoop them this game, I wasn't feeling it from them.
Okay, and we'll get to that. Well, I'll save my piece on them because I do think we should talk about them because the Warriors won by 14. But if you look deeper into the numbers, the actual starting 5 of the Warriors, and a lot of that was the close. They played very well together. That starting 5. So some of that is obviously Draymond and Steph. Okay, so I wanted to read 2 Anthony Slater stats here. So Anthony, he's two-way Slater, man. He had this stuff up really quickly. The Warriors had 70 rebounds tonight to close out the Grizzlies. That's an NBA high for rebounds by any team in any game this season. Looney had 21. Draymond had 15. Wiggins had 11.
What?
45 defensive rebounds, 25 offensive rebounds. Okay, so that they were just they put it to their mind that after last game, they needed to do some of the fundamental things that got them there in this game. So the next one. So this was in the midst of this run. Andrew Wiggins makes a three. He gets a steal and a dunk, which was really Brooks dribbling the ball off his foot, which he did like 2 or 3 times, and he got bailed out by the referees one time. Then after the steal and the dunk, Andrew Wiggins gets a stop on Dylan Brooks.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Leads to a Steph Curry 3. So he was at the center of the biggest 7-0 run in the game. So that is Andrew two-way Wiggs. I feel like there were moments in that Denver series where I think we were like, Wiggins' box score may not be sexy, but the stuff that he does, it just affects the court in a way that nobody, I would say Draymond does as well, but Draymond doesn't have to pick up, these little wings like Wiggins does, because the flip side is, Steph had a couple of really good one-on-one moments, but he also had a lot of Dylan Brooks shooting right in his face and making threes. And Jordan Poole was an absolute ghost on defense again today. Unfortunately, he was getting jittery. He didn't want to get screened. So instead of fighting through it or going over the top, he decided to go under it. And there was one where he was about 15 feet away from the actual shooter and they buried one. And then there was another situation where I think they only had like 2 or 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Somebody had the ball and they were like in no man's land and they passed it off to Melton. And Jordan was right there. And instead of getting wide and long, Jordan got skinny and Melton went right by him and scored with like 1 second left on the shot clock. But there was moments like that where, we talked about, we're not going to rail on Poole too much. I think I did a lot of that last game, but it's a tough love thing because I love that guy so much. There's so many things that he does well, and I just want to see, the consistency on the defensive end. Gonna throw up some of these comments here from the people watching. Robert Ramos, of course, good friend. Glad to see the Warriors back in the Western Conference Finals, of course. He said at WFC. I think he's thinking about soccer. He meant WCF. And then Mark Nobita, Loon. He's a big Loon guy today. And also Eddie Love. Looney. I'm not sure who Eddie Love is. It's interesting. We'll have to figure out who Eddie Love is. At first, I thought it was your uncle for a second. All right. So my second point about this game is, Clay was the first half star. Without those big threes that he made in the first half, I'm not sure the Warriors are that close with the Grizzlies because he was bailing them out. He was able to catch and shoot in rhythm. What he wasn't doing a lot of is the thing that was bothering us, which is pump faking his way into more defense than if he just shot it instead. Like he's trying to do the Steph thing where Steph pump fakes, they pass over, he steps to the side and he shoots, and Clay's not as quick on it. So sometimes he just pushes himself into the other defender and they get a hand on him. He didn't do that a lot. He was just getting it and shooting it, getting it and shooting it, getting in rhythm. And he was in a great rhythm. I think he ended up with 30 points. And I'd be interested to see how many of those were in the first half. He was 11 of 22, 8 of 14 from 3, 8 rebounds as well. Some tough ones. All the Warriors had tough rebounds. Steph had 7. These guys were battling because they had to, right? If Looney's going to box out, Adams and Draymond's going to box out Jackson, then it's up to Wiggins and Clay and Steph to battle Brooks and Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones to get rebounds. And those guys out-rebounded their guard counterparts by a large margin. And that is probably a little understated. People probably aren't even really thinking about that, but also a big part of this game. But in the second half, and we talked about it, it was Wiggins both offensively and defensively. You with your Richard Jeff Barry Bonds comment, you kind of stole a little bit of what I was going to say, but we can quickly move on. But yeah, I mean, he was tremendous, and there's a the Warriors are going to have a problem at the end of next year. Andrew Wiggins' contract's going to expire, and then they're going to have to pay Jordan Poole. And essentially, what you're going to do is you're just going to flip-flop their contracts. Wiggins leaves, Jordan Poole gets Wiggins' deal, pretty much. It's not going to be exactly. But, man, I think they need Andrew Wiggins, especially in series like this, right? Like, Andrew Wiggins does what Brooks and Bane do on the other side, which is their nose is near the basketball. They're going after shots, even if the Warriors are making them, like they're contesting hard. They're going to the bucket hard, and they're not afraid to get knocked down. Like that's the toughness that those guys have that I would like to see a little bit more in Jordan Poole. But Wiggins is like that. Wiggins, like you said, he fumbles a lot of stuff. He fumbles the ball a lot. He drops passes. He has the little bunnies and leaves it short somehow when he can literally
Wiggins.
Jump and just drop the ball because he can jump so high. It's classic Wiggs. But at the same time, he's also battling and he's also finishing over guys. So they're going to have an interesting problem by the end of next year, depending on what they can do with the money, because Wiggs is very valuable, even if his box score isn't always super sexy.
Do you think it changes at all depending on what Steph, Clay, and Draymond look like after next year? If you think they can go another 3 or 4 years, that might be what Steph's like 34 or 33 right now. If you think he could push it at an elite level to like 36 or 37, do you think that would change your decision on if it's Poole or Wiggins if you had to make the choice?
CP, he's gonna be CP,
old
man CP. I'll tell you my ultimate worry. Now, I didn't want to say any of this because I'm a little superstitious and I didn't want to jinx anything, but my main worry about this series was, you remember that commercial, and Jalen Rose always mentioned it. He would always say that he would, if he was Chris Paul, he would have never let that commercial where Chris Paul's going down the escalator and Steph is coming up the escalator.
Yeah.
Do you remember that commercial?
Yeah.
And so I was like thinking, like, if the Warriors lose this series after being up 3-1, it's kind of a similar trajectory. But I think the front office thinks that, okay, we have Wiseman coming back. Kuminga and Moody are going to be better players next year, and they will be a little bit more supportive to this current cast. And if that happens, if, pie in the sky, I think that could be helpful. But my worry was that this is like a sneaky chance for the Warriors because of injuries, because of age. We saw that really weird calf injury that was really a back injury with Draymond. Like, that doesn't generally happen to younger players, and it's just the wear and tear of this 6'6" dude having to guard 275-pound centers all game long, right? And so my worry was just that they were going to be going down the escalator and Memphis is going to be coming up the escalator. Now, they won this series. It's going to be the same thing with the Suns, right? Outside of CP and Jay Crowder, the Suns are young and they're fast and they're long. Oh, JaVale, yeah.
Bismack Biyombo.
Well, but those guys aren't the main, the main piece of that team. It's Ayton and it's Booker and it's
Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, Bridges, the wing. So it's going to be a similar thing. It's going to be the old heads, the guys who know how to play winning basketball, versus the hungry guys who got a taste of the NBA Finals last year. And I think there's going to be the possibility of a really good series. And
wait, did you already write off the Mavericks? There's still a Game 7 that needs to be played.
You're right. I just, by the way that the season has been going, or the series has been going, with whoever plays at home wins, that's kind of how I felt. So
I just hope it's a good game.
Is it Sunday? I think it's Sunday. Yeah, I think
it's probably. I think
it's got to be Game Sunday. 7s are Sunday.
It's got to be Sunday.
All right. So wait, go ahead.
Well, the Bucks game is on Sunday too.
Yeah, they played tonight.
Yeah, why did the Celtics? I mean, why did the Mavericks get another day of rest and the Suns?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they
Uh,
did. I don't know why that happened. Maybe the Bucks and the Celtics got an extra day earlier in the series. I'm not
maybe.
really sure. Okay, last point here. Your Hall of Famers close it out. Draymond's energy plus Steph's clutch shot making. I know you were probably frustrated with how they both played in the first half, which I liked Draymond's energy from Jump Street. I thought even though he was making some turnovers, they were turnovers, and Richard Jefferson kind of disagreed. And I'm not gonna, Richard Jefferson is a really good basketball player, but the way that I saw them, I watched more Warriors than Richard Jefferson this year, so I'll hold on strong to my opinion. But Draymond was trying to throw guys open, like how a great NFL quarterback does, right? Nobody's open downfield. You can see like the wide receiver's running to a spot. The wide receiver can't see in front, behind, and side to side all at the same time. But the quarterback can see it, right? So the quarterback throws that wide receiver open. And that's what Draymond was trying to do. Now, the passes were a little strong, or maybe someone cut and he thought they were going one way. I didn't hate those turnovers because Draymond was trying to stretch this Memphis defense, which was just outstanding for the most part, especially around the perimeter. And so the ones that were frustrating were the lazy passes that were thrown into hands and stuff. Those turnovers by Poole and Steph were way more frustrating to me than Draymond, trying to be aggressive and maybe overthrowing guys on outlet passes. And then, we're used to Steph making shots, and it's so frustrating to watch him. He was 6 of 17 from 3 tonight. This man shot 17 of his 27 shots from three-point land, and he was bricking hard. Late in the game, I think, I'm sure most people were hoping this because we've seen Steph play for all of these postseason games. My hope was like, okay, he's getting these misses out of the way because when push comes to shove, he's going to find his rhythm in the fourth quarter and hit those shots. And he did. That's exactly what he did. So I think even though I wouldn't say either guy played more than a B or a B plus game, the timing in which they did was necessary. And they played well enough to where the Warriors did not get behind, because the score, Grizzlies took the lead in the second quarter. The Warriors had the lead at the half. The Warriors had the lead by 1 at the end of the third quarter. So it wasn't like, even though it was a game of runs, like 7-0 here, 9-0 here, they still kept the game close, and that's what they needed, because they knew in the fourth quarter they were going to be able to hit some home runs. So that's my third point. And I know you're not too happy with that one, but if you have any thoughts.
I feel like I'm a kid who just discovered that like Santa's not real, and I'm trying to like say, no, Santa's real. I swear I've seen him before. Draymond and Steph were the MVP and the defensive player of the year within like 2 months of the season, or a month and a half or 2 months. Like to me, the runaway candidates.
Yeah.
And
first 2 months of the season.
I just feel like I'm a kid who watched how easy it was for them. And I'm just like, ever since like December, I'm like, well, come on, when is it going to come back? On my podcast, I'm literally saying like, yeah, I think Steph will get it back. When he starts that slump after trying to chase the 3-point record, like it's literally been since then. I feel like he hasn't had a consistent like Steph nights as he did every single night in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, he showed up when it mattered. That's what's most important. And I don't know if I'm like had this old head mentality or in that sense, but it's like I feel like I hold them to a high standard, and I hold them to an MVP and defensive player of the year standard.
Well, I will say that there's going to come a time where both guys will sort of have to take secondary roles on this team, right? And I think what you hope at that point is that Jordan Poole becomes a star, Kuminga becomes a star, maybe Wiseman becomes a player, and they're going to have to find other guys. Who knows from a free agency perspective? But Clay and Steph and Draymond, they have seen, they've played in more big games, in their career than they have in front of them left. And that is a hard thing to think about because, we've seen this from, we go back to 2012, 2013, when you and your brother, we're watching them beat Denver in the first round of the playoffs. And that's, I feel like that was when you guys really started to understand how things were going and what playoff basketball was about. And then from then on, the Warriors in the playoffs every year, except for the last 2 years before this one because of all the injuries. And so, yeah, it's gonna be a thing when both of those guys, and we've seen a little bit of it with Clay because of the inconsistency. But we're all going like, what the heck? What happened to Clay? And it's just like, this is gonna happen. And next year it may even be worse. And we'll see. I don't know. Maybe Draymond will become a vegetarian, or they'll do some intermittent fasting, or but Steph she keeps getting more buff and buff every year, so he needs his protein. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agree with you. It was kind of frustrating to watch them, and you almost feel like a bad fan because you kind of take for granted how great both of them are when you need them, and then when it's not there, your biggest worry is like, oh, they lost it. Like, how did that happen? It can't happen. At some point, it's going to happen. But I thought, they found it when they needed it in this fourth quarter here. All right, so we talked about this a little bit. Dallas and Phoenix. I'm calling Phoenix at home. I don't, Luka might have to have like one of the greatest games of all time, or maybe it's Brunson and these other guys just shoot the lights out from three. But I think Phoenix wins, and I think it's going to be Warriors Phoenix. But who do you want to play would be my question.
So I was going to ask you this question, and I don't know if I want to go first.
Who do I want to play? I want to play Dallas because I think defensively, I think the Warriors will be able to exploit Dallas just as much as Dallas will be able to exploit the Warriors. But I think the Warriors have bigger shot makers. And look, the experience is kind of what we're banking on here. So I think the Warriors would beat Dallas. And I'm not sure I could say that about Phoenix, though I do think that series goes deep.
My worry with Dallas is that I feel like they're finding some guys during playoff series and like that are stepping up and becoming playoff rotation guys in the playoffs. Like Frank Ntilikina was a big part of their win in Dallas, and he hasn't really played like all season. Reggie Bullock has been a great like 3-and-D guy for them. Dorian Finney-Smith has stepped up. And as we know, Brunson was able to drop like 40 points in a playoff game. Like all of these guys are finding some next year that we haven't seen in the whole regular season in the playoffs. With Phoenix, I feel like we've already seen everything. They haven't shown me anything new. They haven't went to different guys. The only thing I feel like we haven't seen is Bismack Biyombo. And whoop-de-doo, that's not a big worry to me. But my worry with the Mavericks...
He's going to catch a few lobs.
That's it, yeah. It's just my worry with the Mavericks is that, I think they might be able to catch the Warriors by surprise with just like, I don't know, just these guys who have stepped up in the playoffs and the Warriors haven't like played this Dallas group. They've played that Phoenix group 3 times this year already. This Dallas group is different than what they've been playing.
Okay, so I would look at it in this way. Who do you want? Like, okay, so Mikal Bridges is an ace defender. He is he is the kind of guy who makes guards it makes their life miserable basically. And so I would feel like he's the best defensive player in that series outside of Draymond.
I think Draymond's the best, and then Bridges, and then like Wiggins.
So then on with Dallas, who on Dallas's team would even fit that bill?
I think Dinwiddie's up there, and I think it's Dorian Finney-Smith has been playing like some small ball five somehow on DeAndre Ayton. But like, yeah, if you're asking for who's the Mikal Bridges, I would implore you to find that anywhere else in the league. Mikal Bridges is like so unique in that sense. But I get what you're saying. Who's the guard stopper? I guess that attributes to your point that I'm even trying to hesitate and trying to figure out who it is.
Well, I mean, it's not like, it's not like I'm 1,000% right in this, but my like I said, my worry is you have Mikal Bridges, you have CP3 who's gonna, do some dirty stuff, and then you have Ayton to clean up any of the issues, right? And Crowder's a tough guy. He's gonna play volleyball. He's gonna do everything he can. Now he's also older and slower, and he's not as much of a shot maker. So maybe you don't have to worry about him as much. But you look at the Dallas side. The Warriors can isolate Luka Doncic, right? Like you
But
can
do they? When do they do? Weren't we saying like when are they just going to start attacking Ja in the series, or like? And they kind of started, but it's
they
just
did in the third game, and that's when he got hurt.
yeah.
But so there was a lot of Steph going against Steven Adams, going against Jaren Jackson. If they get Luka matched up like that, that's a thing for them. And I guess the question would be, do you want the Warriors to play an up and down offensive style game, or do you want them to play the defensive kind of game that they played in this series against Memphis?
This
Because I
series
think
was
that
uncomfortable.
I think the Phoenix series would be a lot more like that. I think it would be a lot more of, possession by possession, and the Dallas series would be just up and down basketball. Who's going to outscore who? So
Mm.
I think the Warriors probably have a better chance to win that up and down series than they do against Phoenix, but they have a good shot to beat both teams, right? They're there for a reason.
Yep. I just think I'm going to die on the Dallas Hill. To be honest, it might even mess with my basketball takes, but I called it from the beginning, man, and it just feels good to be right. So I might just die on this hill.
They've been playing really well at home. They need to solve it on the road, and we'll see. Sunday is going to be a very exciting game.
I agree.
Okay, so nothing much. We're not even gonna play the music because my guy, he went from starting the last 2 games,
3
games, Jonathan Kuminga, the Kuminga watch, to not even playing tonight. What was up with that?
What's the reasoning? How does that make sense?
It's a Damian Lee and Bielitsa
Bielitsa
Kuminga,
took his
right?
minutes, I guess. But how do you just go from starting? Like, it's either high or low. There's no like, okay, let's try him for 4 minutes in the second quarter. It's just you're either starting for 3 minutes and getting yanked for the rest of the game, or you're not playing at all. How does that make sense?
It also is probably not healthy for him because naturally he's going to think, oh, well, I started and then now I'm not playing. So that game must have been all my fault. Now, I think he's a pretty smart guy. He probably won't feel that way, but that's sort of the natural way to look at it. I think he'll fit better in a series against Dallas, so that may be another reason to root for Dallas, because I think he can fit in that series and he can play that up and down style and he'll get minutes. Phoenix will be a little bit different, but you
He
may
had his
use
best game of the season, in my opinion, against the Suns on Christmas.
you might need him in spurts like they would use JaVale when JaVale was with the Warriors. Like you would play JaVale like 4 or 5 minute spurts and maybe once a half. And your hope was that he would get a block, you'd start the break, and he'd finish the break. Like that was the hope, right? I think Kuminga could do some of that. I just think in these playoff series, these teams are so smart, and somehow with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, all of a sudden we're like, wait, how did Chris Paul and Kuminga, how did he get Kuminga isolated on this thing? And it's like up fake, and Kuminga just fouls him. It's just stuff like that where you're like, okay, that's gonna be a little rough for Jonathan.
I think another thing to pick the Suns is that it's been quite clear that the longer a series goes, the more Chris Paul deteriorates.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's damn near proven.
Well, he's got a lot of naysayers, right? For game 7. This is kind of what happens with him is he wears down, and
Mhm.
in some cases breaks down as you get to the end. And I have a feeling he's going to want to prove that false on Sunday, but we'll see.
We'll
Like
see.
if I'm Luca, I just try and get opportunities to be physical with him, whether backing him down and getting him, in positions to where he's got to like do things that he's not comfortable doing. So that I think it's going to be a terrific basketball game, and it's going to be the X's and O's and the chess match and stuff is going to be pretty interesting too.
I'm with it. I will. I don't know if this is completely relevant, but I'm just gonna shoot into a year forward, and it's not even about the Warriors, but I think, Chris Paul, if I had to look at it, I mean, if I had to guess, I would guess around 60 games played this season. He
Hmm.
played almost every game up until the All-Star break, then has that like wrist or finger injury that kicks him out
Even
for like,
and then he played in the All-Star game with that. Remember?
yeah, yeah. And then he still finished like the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So he played a lot this year. When the Clippers were doing like that load management stuff, I
Yeah,
do feel like he needs that. Like he shouldn't be playing 60 games a year if this
65
is
games he played.
exactly. So 65 this year. And if this is happening in the playoffs, like push him to 40. The Suns are so good. They don't need him.
A thing that I did not realize, I think he led the league in assists. If he didn't, he was right up there. He took, and this is with the exception of the first 4 years in his career, because the NBA was a little bit different with the three-pointers. In like 11, 12, I think the three-pointers started going way, way up. This is the lowest amount of three-pointers that he's taken in his career, and lowest percentage shooting for three-pointers in his entire career was this year, 31.7%. He made 1 a game and took 3.1. So that's interesting. I wouldn't have even guessed that. But yeah, 14 points, 14.7 points, 65 games. He played almost 33 minutes a game, which is the highest for him since 2014-15. So
Yeah,
that's
like
interesting.
why? You guys were the clear runaway.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I mean, maybe I'm sure they thought that they needed him on the court for that. Okay, so let's quickly talk about some of these other games because this dude went off tonight. My gosh.
I was texting my Celtics friend. I was like, you need like that Jason Tatum game. Like he's been outshined by Al Horford for like 3 out of the 5 games or something. And I think Jaylen Brown outshined him in another game too. So like he hasn't really been the best player for most of this series, in my opinion. And wow. Tonight he did it. And so did Giannis, though. Giannis matched him. Giannis was like 14 for 30 or something like that.
Yeah, and not having that second scorer really hurt
It's
them tonight.
killing them. Yeah, it
Yeah, it
is
really hurt
killing
them
them.
tonight. But, we talked about it. You said that they were gonna go back, and I said that I thought they were gonna close it. I've been way wrong in some of these games. I think I said I thought Philadelphia was gonna find a way to win the series, and what I underestimated is, like, Embiid almost, like, broke his face, and he's playing with a crazy injury, so I
And also
underestimated
Harden
that.
is
And
not.
yeah, Harden was a
Yeah.
0. I should have we've seen him break down against the Warriors like that, so not surprising to
I
me.
know.
But, yeah, so now call it game 7 in Boston. This was the Bucks kinda tanking the end of the season and not really caring about where they finished, and Boston wanting to get home court advantage just for this game. Who takes it?
I Yeah, this one's gonna be tough. I got 51% on the Bucks winning, 49 for the that's how close it is for me. I don't want to say 50-50 because I just think that Giannis is that can do it. I think Giannis can do it, but I got 51%. Like I'm not 100% confident.
I would probably pick Giannis too, just because of last year and him sort of understanding what they need, but If Tatum plays like that again, then then it becomes the secondary players. Like if your stars go mano a mano and kind of play evenly, then it's about the rest of your team. And I don't know if the Bucks have enough. Obviously Drew Holiday is a terrific defensive player, but he's not, he's not that much of a creator as he is, this great defender. I don't know. Somebody from Milwaukee is definitely going to need to step up, and it'll be interesting to watch. But that's going to be another game. These are going to be two crazy game sevens on Sunday.
I agree.
Did you any last thoughts on the Heat? Did they impress you? Do they bore you? They kind of bore me, but I don't know.
Yeah,
They're tough, man.
I feel like they don't have like I don't know. I think maybe I'm overly critical on Jimmy Butler because there really isn't much to criticize. He shows up in the big games. He's been awesome this playoffs, but I don't know. I just am not like a total fan of, I guess, the way he scores. It's not dirty or anything. It's just not like that big of like woo or wow, like oh crazy three, oh crazy dunk. He's kind of just like a mid-range guy. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my only critique on them. And the fact that my only critique is that Jimmy Butler's just a mid-range guy and they're still scoring isn't, it probably bodes well for them. But Duncan Robinson's not playing because he's such a minus on defense. I still think that they are the worst 1 seed since last year's Utah Jazz. But out of all the out of all the teams, there's probably still on my bottom half of it.
I think it's just because they're not fun to watch. They're a very defensive minded team, and the way that they win these games is they just take out the other team's shooters. And so they make the games not great because of their defensive style. And that's not a fun way to watch basketball, especially when you have all these other stars on the other teams. But if you don't have a Giannis and you don't have a Jason Tatum, you don't have a Ja, then your identity has to be a little bit different, right? Because you're going to have to stop all these guys. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to see Miami like in the NBA Finals. It's not going to be a fun NBA Finals.
They match up against the Warriors well.
Yeah,
I will say that.
But so I would sort of be rooting for Boston or Milwaukee to beat them.
But so does Boston.
but at least Boston they have stars, or they have a star and someone who's sort of a budding star, and so that's kind of exciting, rather than the whole is Kyle Lowry going to be limping up the court and. Maybe Hero comes and plays, but or maybe it is the crowning of Jimmy buckets. Maybe that becomes a story, but I'm rooting for the other stories just because I think they're more interesting.
Me too.
Okay, so we'll be back Wednesday night, which is game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. If Phoenix wins, game 1 is in Phoenix, and if Dallas wins, game 1 is in San Francisco. So that is something to look for. All right, so we are
really
done
quick
here.
though.
Yep,
we should mention that you should want to play Dallas because the Warriors are the 3 seed. The Dallas Mavericks were the 4 seed. That would mean the Warriors get the home court advantage in Game 7. So that adds to your point. And I think
Joe Lacob gets another home game
and more revenue for the league. I think the majority would agree with you there. I'm just like. Not 100%. I think the majority of the NBA fans, and I think it's the right way of thinking, is just that the Phoenix Suns were the best team all year. But to me, they seemed vulnerable and beatable. And I think teams are like the Mavericks are figuring themselves out playing against the Suns. And to me, that's scary. But we will see. That's my last takes on it.
It is a good place for the Warriors to be in if they believe that they match up well with both teams. Now, I think the basketball nerd, kind of the ones who study things, that you're looking sort of deeper into the numbers. I think they would say that Phoenix is a harder matchup just because of the youth and the length. But then the Warriors also played like crap against Dallas all season long. I feel like did they beat Dallas once?
I don't remember. I don't know. They might have been once, but
I remember they got killed in Dallas one game, like
because we split the Phoenix series 2-2.
Yeah,
But yeah, Dallas has got. I remember a lot of Dallas losses this year. I'm not sure if we got one.
Dude, there was one where they lost by like 30. I just saw Lucas smiling. All right. So yeah, Wednesday night. I think the game is at 6. I think all the Western Conference final games will be at 6. So we'll be on a little bit earlier than the 10:30 or the 10 o'clock that we have been. So that'll be better. Okay. So follow Brian's network of podcasts at the BAM Pods on Twitter and at the BAM Pod on Instagram. As always, if you are watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you are listening on the podcast feed, give us a little bit of a rating there. 5 stars will help us with our algorithms and such. So, all right, we're done here. We will see you Wednesday night after game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. For Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.